Hi
Hi,
guys, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm great. I'm just gonna turn the volume down a little bit.
Am I screaming at you?
No, it's just a bit loud. It's great. It's good to see you again.
It's very good to see you again. I was
Yeah,
planning to come earlier and visit you.
yeah,
That's has to pause real quick, but
yeah. But hopefully soon, if the
hopefully
borders
soon.
open. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, Tell us a little bit, how are you now and how have you been in the last few weeks?
Um, well, the last few weeks have been, I think, okay in terms of my mental state,
Mm-hmm.
because we were sort of just waiting, and then now the government have slowly started to open up phase one, which was the younger children could go back to schools and kindergarten. And then they just announced now that on this coming Monday, professional sport activities and a few other things will be opened. And the guidelines for restaurants and cafes will be announced on the 11th, and then they can open on the 18th. So right now, I'm a bit, stressed out again because
Yeah.
we're sort of back to the feeling where we were in the beginning, where you don't know what's going to happen and everything. Like the wind is blowing from one direction to the next, and we sort of just need to be flexible and fluid like water to find out how we can best deal with all of this and how we can best adapt to this wave that's again coming at us.
Yeah, I can definitely reflect that here we are able to open on the 15th again. Um, And I think this is the next big challenge for sure, because
Yeah,
there are no clear guidelines and everyone needs to try and figure it out themselves a little bit.
yeah.
Um, but there has been a good community in Berlin, at least, that tries to share also resources and information. Um, but can you give us a little bit of an idea of what you did at the restaurant? So you closed and you did decided to not do any takeout or um, any of the other solutions that some restaurants found.
Yeah, so first of all, I found out about this COVID-19 situation in late January, and then I got married to my beautiful wife in the beginning of February, and at this wedding,
Congratulations
uh,
again.
thank you. We had a few international friends, and my very good friend from Seoul in Korea. We were talking about this whole situation and what was happening there. So when I came back to Copenhagen, in mid-February, I sort of knew that okay, maybe we should prepare for whatever's going to happen, because in Korea it sort of happened overnight, and we sort of started to make a plan just based upon what would happen if the situation would go into this scenario, into that scenario. But basically, when everything changed overnight, we sent our staff home to begin with until we sent them home on the 12th of March and said, okay, you're now sent home until 1st of April, and then we'll figure out what's going to happen. And then for those next 2 weeks, all the information was just being thrown at us and nobody knew what was going to happen. So we didn't make any major decisions because to me, at least, I just felt it important that we could make sure that our staff was safe at home and quarantined, and then we can always figure out what's going to happen afterwards.
Right.
Um, so we then took the government's salary compensation package. So we were able to keep everybody on board, but the problem is that we had to make sure that everybody also took a pay cut because otherwise we simply couldn't afford it. So all our savings and everything that we've been working so hard for the past 4 years, that has gone into paying the salaries over the next couple of months. Um, and then we haven't decided to do takeaway. There's many people that has been doing it in Copenhagen, and some people are doing really well, and I think it's fantastic. And we're doing everything that we can to support them. But for us, it didn't make sense. Basically, just because of the size of the restaurant, also because we have the cafe, and we didn't know what the terms would be in terms of the fixed cost compensation. We're still actually working that out. We haven't really, finished that yet. So we're now just figuring out how to do that. But then I sort of thought, okay, what else can we do? And then many people around the world have it much worse than we do here in Denmark. So I thought it would be nice if we could lend our Instagram account. So we've been doing that to people in Australia and Japan, the United States especially, and sort of just for them to have a platform to show and tell our followers what's going on in their world. It's not a big following, but it is 141,000 followers. So it's a good amount, I do think, from the restaurants point of view. And that's been a lot of people following, and there's been a very good response to it. Besides that, I'm working on an initiative which is helping some farmers. So a lot of the great Danish chefs have said yes to participate with a recipe and a picture of this farmer's ingredient. And then on Tuesday, actually, I will go pick up the asparagus, and then I will divide them out to all the guys, and then they will do the recipe and the picture, and then we'll post it on the farmer's Instagram. And then people can buy the asparagus directly from the farmer, and then they can cook at home.
That's a super nice initiative.
So they can get the inspirations from all these great Danish chefs. And when we open the restaurant again, the asparagus will be, you can order it directly off the farmer, and then we're gonna have like a pickup spot at the restaurant. So all the money goes directly to the farmer. All we do is act as a pickup place in Copenhagen, because he will have a lot of asparagus this season, and there will be less restaurants, and there will be less amount of guests. So the amount of asparagus that needs to be harvested and sold over the season, it's very important to him that he sells everything. So we're trying to find a way to
show also
help
people
out.
that there's more to a restaurant than just a restaurant, but it's like an actual ecosystem. Where a lot of people belong to, right? But what was exactly the impact on the team that you felt when you shut down, when you closed? What did you do also as a leader to communicate with the team? What was the feedback from the team? What did you experience with them? You have like 35 employees, right?
Yes, we have 35 employees. So in the beginning, everybody was very confused. I mean, for 2 weeks leading up to the actual closure, I was telling people, please don't travel. Please don't do this. Please don't do that. We can't decide what you should do in your private life, but just please don't do it, because we have no idea what's going on.
I can't tell you, but please don't.
So I was really trying to convey the message, but I think in total a lot of people were listening, so when we shut down, everything happened so fastly. So we had a lot of staff meetings on daily basis, and when we decided to sort of pull the plug for the safety of our staff, that's the reason we did it. We actually closed a few days earlier. We closed on a Thursday, and the government didn't close the city until Monday. But we closed over the weekend because I didn't feel that it would be safe for the staff. Then we sent them home. And then every time there was a press announcement from the government, we wrote out we have a plan day system where you can send messages to everybody. And so every time there was a press conference, we sent out the information to them, because 95% of them are foreigners. And it's very difficult for them because their family is not here, and many of their friends are not here, and it's very difficult to understand the Danish system. And the government, there was no English news because they couldn't keep up with the information flow. So there was somebody asking a journalist saying, what are you going to do to all the foreigners watching? And they just said, you have to find the information on yourself, because we can't translate it for you. You just simply have to do it yourself. So we made sure that we sent out a clear communication every time there was a guideline from the government, and then they were just at home watching that. And then the salary compensation finally got approved, and then we put everybody on the salary compensation, so they, you know, they don't get the full pay that they had before, but they do get some money for sitting at home, which was nice, and which was the most important thing to me, to make sure that they felt safe and they knew they had some sort of income coming their way.
For sure. Was there anything that was the biggest struggle for you in that role of a leader? Because I feel like, you know, chefs, of course, you guys were leaders before, but I feel like this crisis also brought a lot more difficult decisions and conversations to it, and like knowledge that you suddenly had to really dive into, because you as a leader also didn't know what was going to happen. So I think there were, you know, like people really had to step up. It's not just about telling you, hey, you should do this dish better, but it's really about also, you know, reacting maybe to fears that people have, reacting to, health issues, reacting to financial crises and all those things. What was for you was the biggest struggle?
I don't know. I think that you know, I mean, I think I'm very good at fighting with my back against the wall, so to speak. But of course, you know, I those days where everything was happening, I didn't sleep for 48 hours straight. Because I was so, I mean, there was so much going on, and I was on the phone with people in the United States. I was calling my friend in Bali, telling him, listen, you need to get on a plane out of there, because it's going to come to Bali very soon. It's probably already there, but the government hasn't done anything. You need to get out of there. So I was calling my friends around the world on that night, because I was telling them, listen, you know, it's changed overnight here in Denmark. You need to get prepared for it. And then we were trying to talk to our staff, but, you know, there were so many questions that we couldn't answer. And we said it, you know, we were very honest. We said, listen, we will do our best to answer your questions, but there's some of the things that we don't have the answer to. And right now, if we don't make the decisions that we will do now, you know, we're not going to have enough money to sustain long term. So we are going to make the best decisions for the team, for the restaurant. And then, you know, we will adjust them as we go along, which is also what we're going to have to do for the next year and a half. Yeah. So, but, you know, I don't know what my biggest struggle, I don't know. I think that, I mean, I think in these times, it's important to try to do something which is good. I mean, to know yourself and know when you're angry, or know when you're sad, and then do things that makes you feel better. I mean, I go running 4 or 5 kilometers every morning, and then I try to do yoga for 30 minutes to an hour every day.
Okay,
and then,
inspiring.
I mean, it makes me feel better.
Right.
So it makes me feel better. So
I think this is like a really good point, because I'm wondering really if team dynamics and like if the communication between teams have changed in the last weeks, and I do believe so. I think it is right now a point where people can actually say how they feel, and also bosses maybe, or that's what at least I felt like, people are really asking like, how do you feel? And it's not this like, hey, how are you? But it's like, how do you feel right now? And people take this question really seriously, and I think it is definitely a difference in also responding, because you don't have to, you're not seen as weak if you actually say like, I'm not feeling good right now. Like I'm scared of this, or I have financial problems, because everyone is in the same boat, right?
Yeah.
And I'm thinking about this like change in the kitchens, because I think as a picture in the kitchens, these communication of feelings and this communication maybe also of fear is mostly seen as a weakness. So people are like, what chefs are and what restaurant industry workers are, they're like stress resistant and they're really good with pressure, and that's what you kind of have to be, right? Like if you show a sign of weakness, it's very difficult to do that, I think. And I think it is a very outdated structure of working together. And I think we have talked a lot in the last years about this, like how chefs have to change in like leadership positions and all that. But I think there was never really a point where it could change because everyone was kind of in the same structural pressure, and it was really hard to change that. And do you think that this might be maybe kind of like an opening where we could start talking about this seriously, where people could really actually say and change some things in their communication or ways of working now with their teams?
Well, I really hope so. I mean, we've been telling the team that, when we come back, it's going to be tough. It's going to be a lot of work, but it has to be fun, because there will be so much, I mean, on me, especially, there will be a lot of like financial stress. And also for our finance department and everybody else, which has been working night and day. So but it's very important that we have fun when we come back. And we've been planning the menu over the last couple of weeks and talked about it. And I've said multiple times, if something is too difficult, then let's just remove it. It's not worth it. But of course it will be, long days, and it will be hard coming back after, being at home for 1.5 months almost. Some of the guys haven't, they've just been at home. Maybe they've been exercising a little bit. I mean, me, I've been back and forth and to meetings and, constantly been, working without working, even though I've just been at home. But
that's the thing, right? I think that's a thesis that I have, that maybe now, especially in the US, where also the tips are like gone now. I think for on a long-term view, the restaurant industry might not be as attractive as it used to be before.
No, but there was also too many people, maybe. There was a way, in my opinion, not that people should work or travel or do whatever they want, but in my opinion, there was a very big something happened over the last couple of years where people, they were just flying around the world, and they were staying 1 month there, 2 months there, 3 months there, and that's completely up to them. And it's our responsibility as an employer to make sure that you create an environment where people want to stay longer. That's how I view. But at the same time, I do want to say that, I think now there's an incentive for people to stay longer in one place, and it's going to be better for them because in my experience, the longer you stay in one place, the more you learn about yourself professionally, but also personally. And ultimately, that's what makes a difference when you one day want to open up your own restaurant. The fact that you've been through so many various scenarios, good things and good celebrations and crises like this. I tell my guys in the kitchen all the time, I tell them, you should be happy that you experienced something like this on my account, because when the day happens 10 years from now or 15 years from now, and you have your own restaurant and something else happens, you sort of have been through something which is very difficult. It might not be similar, but then at least you've seen it. And you will remember how we reacted and what we did, and hopefully that can help inspire you in the future.
For sure. And I think that also if you have a team that you can keep to the restaurant, first of all, I think it makes your restaurant as a system way more resilient, right? Because how much work is it for you, and then in the end, how much money to again have new people coming in all the time to learn them, to teach them the things new.
Technically for us, every time the number we calculate on, every time you have to start a new employee, it's 1 million kroner that you invest in time and energy and all these things. That's the calculation for us. So if you have to restart, if you think about all the hours and energy and money and produce that you spend on training a new staff, it's 1 million kroner. If you have to put it into an amount. And
I think also there's a new generation of chefs coming up that are also looking for maybe other mentors, and also a way of like a sense in what they're doing. And I think there's a lot of good examples of restaurants actually that show their employees that give them maybe also a little bit more responsibility. And the longer you stay, the more you trust your employees, and maybe the more responsibility you can give. And I think there will be new people and younger people coming that want to see a different way of working. And in the end, I think if there's a crisis coming, and there will be more crises coming like that, it gives your restaurant also an advantage, and it makes it more resilient as a system itself. So I'm just wondering where, if this actually is like maybe a point where we can start this conversation again and start this conversation of rethinking.
Yeah, I mean, I hope that everybody who's in our profession are there because they love it. You know, I didn't enter the culinary world because you know, I thought that I was ever going to be where I am today, or that, you know, that I didn't do it because I wanted to make a lot of money. I did it because I liked cooking and I liked to be activated. And then I fell in love with the profession. I fell in love with the front of house and back of house and the service and everything. And that's why I did it. And that's why, in my opinion, that's why you should do whatever it is that you do, whether you're a lawyer or you're a cook. You should do it because you love it. And of course, that can be difficult for some people to find out, and you should just try multiple things until you find out what's for you. And but I do think that our profession will sort of be reset in a way, because now obviously you can't travel, and there's going to be less jobs, so it will, we are going into, I mean, whether we like it or not, we're going into a full recession that we've never seen before. And it's so difficult because, you know, everything looks the same, it feels the same, but it just isn't. And that's what's so tricky about it. But we have no idea what the rest of this year is going to look like, or 21 for that matter.
You also said that you are trying to take care of yourself and read yourself a little bit better, and you're doing that through sports, for example. Can you share in general a little bit about your personal growth and experience, and like personal growth as a chef? As well.
I think I mean, we spoke a little bit about it as well the last time we saw each other, but like, I think mentorship is quite important, and many times it is. I mean, we started a mentorship program at the restaurant, and we did that a year and a half ago.
How does it look like? What does it mean?
Well, basically, it is if somebody falls into a deep, you know, challenge, so to speak. We had a guy who was very, you know, he was performing well in the beginning, and then he was doing well, and then from one day to another, he just he couldn't perform. Like he couldn't hold his section, he couldn't do whatever it is that he was doing, and he was doing the same thing every day. So, you know, there was something else going on. So we sat him down and we said, listen, you know, what's going on with you? Oh yeah, me and my girlfriend, we broke up, and it just he was so sad about it that he couldn't function. So we said, okay, let's figure out a way how to solve this, rather than just say, okay, maybe you should leave, which is probably the normal response for, you know, many people in this industry and many places. So we put him in sort of our mentorship program, where he was following the sous chefs and around, and they were also helping him on the section. And then that sort of got him into his routine, and then he became better and he became himself. And then ultimately, you know, a few months ago, then he left, and then he moved to New York, which was his long-term dream, that to go to New York and work in New York. And I mean, I think that's great. The fact that we were able to put him back on his feet, and that means a lot to me. And it might be very, you know, subtle. It might not be very indirect, but just the fact that you take your time doing it, because obviously it requires a lot of time from me, but it also requires a lot of time for the sous chefs who's taking care of them, because all of a sudden they're not just dictating orders. They have to take care of this other person, and you know, many times they're just a few years older than him. You know, and it's not like they have the world figured out, but you know, all of a sudden it just teaches responsibility in a different way, and I do think it's I do think it's very important. And then when we had more staff, we had a sponsorship program where everybody was connected throughout the entire hierarchy. So the chef de partie was connected to junior sous chef, and the junior sous chef was connected to the senior sous chef, and you know, and then it led all the way up to me. But sort of there was a way for people to talk to each other, but then again, we can only implement the system, and then it's up to the people within the various platforms to make sure that you actually help that person next to you. But I think leading the way and making sure the systems are there is the most important thing.
Yeah.
And I did that because I thought it was important, because throughout my entire career, there's been a handful of people who has shaped me and in terms of my way of thinking professionally and also personally, that's helped me through some very difficult times and has really been there to mentor me and to give me advice as well. But so I wanted to make sure that whoever is around me now have the same opportunity plus more, plus everything else that I thought that I needed back then. And but at the end of the day, it's still up to the individual to make sure that you study, that you absorb as much information that you can, and that you take notes and that you remember it. Because I can preach all I want, but if nobody's listening, then or whatever it is, or you don't think it's important to you, or you don't understand it, well, that's up to you. So my idea and philosophy and thesis is that we need to put as much information forward and make sure that it's out there regarding everything. If it's how to open a restaurant, or what do you do if this happens, or we have very open conversations, me and my managers, when they ask these things. I just say flat out, but then it's up to them to remember it and take it into account. I can't do that for you. So right. You have to, as an individual, do 3 times the work as anybody else, and as the person who's saying it, and then you have to listen.
Is there anyone, because you said you exchange also with a lot of colleagues from all over the world, is there anyone that inspired you, or that was kind of like mentoring you in that way of working with your team or working with other people in the kitchen, that like was especially
well, I think everybody that what do you mean, the Instagram takeovers, or
no, I mean in general, in your career, was there anyone that you met that inspired, or that not inspired, but like that taught you a lot about how to deal with your team, or how to that you exchanged, especially on that topic with like leadership?
I think for sure. My business partner Rene Redzepi from Noma, I think he's a good example, because I've known him for many years before he was very famous. and I was a stagiaire when I went to school, when I was a chef apprentice, when on my days off, because you would go to school and it would be from 8 to 12 or 1, mm-hmm. And then I thought, what are you supposed to do with the rest of the day? So I went to work for free at Noma, because
sure.
What
else would you do?
Yeah. So that's what I did when I was an apprentice, and so I've seen Rene evolve over the years, and to see where he is today is incredible. But the amount of pressure and everything that he's been through, and with the restaurant and all these things, I think it's incredible that he's managed to steer his way through it and come out and be who he is at this very moment. I also would like to say that my former chef Kristian Baumann from Relay, it's been very inspiring to watch his journey, and the fact that he that I was there right next to him, and he allowed me to take responsibility, and he trusted me with that, and that meant a lot to me. And then there was actually one of my very old chefs. She was she was a real fighter in anything. She didn't care, nothing fazed her, and it was and I think that like these 3 people combined together have really done a lot to me professionally, and mentored me, and then that can only bring you so long. That can bring you to a certain platform, and then from there on, it's up to you to make sure that you evolve, And that's why studying is so important, and that you should do everything to make sure that you continue your personal growth, because whatever you learn outside the kitchen will be just as important as what you learn in the kitchen, in my opinion.
Sure. And I think what is very important in that own learning experience is also, especially I think in our industry, is that you have a really, really good network, and learn a lot from other people. I think you're definitely on the forefront of this community work and like keeping in touch with your community. Like we met each other once and we're in touch and we like update each other. And as you said, also the initiatives that you did with the farmers and everything, I think you're doing really great work with that. But besides the exchange that we already have and maybe the exchange of experiences that we have, how can we, what are the next steps that how we can really support each other inside of the industry?
Well, I think that the next thing that we need to talk about is economy, not just how do we get the guests back in, but how do we actually support each other, across the board inside our profession. And one of the things that I've been working on together with my very good friend, Bo Cloxton from the restaurant Iluka here in Copenhagen, is sort of it's a loyalty card, so to speak. But the idea is that it's a bunch of restaurants that signs up to this, and then you as a restaurateur pay for your staff to get involved. Then they get this card, and then they can go to any of the restaurants on this list, and then they get 20% off on the food, because the people in our profession are so passionate and they work so hard, and there's going to be less money, and it's very important for us as as a restaurateurs to give back to them, no matter who it is and which kind of restaurant it is. So
that's a great idea.
And it will also be a way to get the economy started from within. I mean, obviously nobody likes to give a 20% discount on the food, but if if it's going to to a good cause, and that that you made sure that guy could take his girlfriend out for dinner, or or one of the apprentices can go out to eat with their parents, or it would be amazing. Or all the girlfriends can go out and enjoy and drink champagne. That would be amazing. And then they can save a little bit of money, but there could be a sort of a relief within all the stress that will come. Because the next,
for sure, and I think it also has an educational purpose. We were talking about this in Berlin already before, because we have this traineeship program in Germany for chefs, but you get very little paid. And so we were like, how is someone who only gets like 600 euros a month be able to also educate themselves and get inspired by other like fine dining restaurants when you can't afford to go there? So we were already also thinking about like, can you make a system like this for just trainees?
So I think that So our plan is to reach out to a bunch of restaurants, ask if they want to be involved. If they don't, okay, that's up to you. And then, we create this list, and then we start with it, with those kind of restaurants. And if anybody else wants to join, in my opinion, it doesn't matter which type of restaurant. I mean, if the local kebab stand wants to join in, great. If the small cafe on the corner wants to join in, if Geranium wants to be a part of it, amazing. I mean, I don't care. To me, it's about giving something back to, the people working in the kitchens, because I do remember how it was, working 5-6 days a week for, 500-600 euros, like you said. You don't get anything, and you don't have an option to go out to eat. But if you know that you can get 20% off the food, then, there's an incentive to go out to eat.
For sure.
And then that could sort of be one of the smaller roads that we have to build, because now, the way that I see it, we have to build a lot of small roads that then leads to the bigger road. Yeah. And we need to do everything that we can to make sure that happens.
One more thing that I was also wondering about your situation in Copenhagen right now, because for us in Berlin, like I also, with the work that I do with the Gemeinschaft, is really to try to push this community of food industry forward, and also raise the awareness and the validation that us people in making food get from customers, but also from politicians. And I feel like, at least from the outside, you did like the forefront of the work there. Like you really showed how important gastronomy is, how many people we employ, who is behind that, showed all of the farmers and all of the food producers and artisanal bread makers and whoever is involved in that. Do you feel like this pays off? It's not paying off, but like, do you feel like there's a improvement, and do you feel like a good feedback from people, from Danish people in the government, that you get support and that you get a feeling of importance in the industry and in the economy?
Yeah, I do. First of all, I have to say that we are very lucky to live in a country where, you know, everybody gets taken care of. I mean, you can debate about these packages that, okay, some of them could have been better or whatever. You can always debate. But at the end of the day, everybody gets paid to sit at home, and, you know, there's minimum cost at the moment, even though there is 200 restaurants over the last months that has filed for bankruptcy. Yeah. I do think the politicians are, are listening. The big sort of debate at the moment is between the unions and the politicians, and it's also about explaining to the politicians and to the everyday people that if a restaurant loses 10-15% of revenue, that could be the difference of a restaurant being alive and going bankrupt. It's not about, and that's just revenue. We're not even talking about the numbers, on the bottom of everything. That can literally be a thing that just breaks the wheels. But I do think there is a strong understanding and strong sense of community. And, even though they haven't said it, after restaurants open again, they have flirted with the idea that there might be an extra help or another compensation package in some way. It was just announced that we could get our VAT back from last quarter, as on an interest-free loan, which is of course very nice. We still have to pay them back next April, but at the end of the day, it's good. It's cash right here, right now, which is what most people need to stay afloat.
Yeah, and I think it's very important that people understand, and I think it was actually amazing how consumers were very surprised that restaurants only have such a short time and have such small margins. And I think it was a good moment to also explain to people where money goes and how much money actually goes out of the door again, and to other people, and to raise that awareness for sure. But it will be definitely also a big challenge to explain that just because we're reopening doesn't mean that it doesn't get harder, it doesn't get easier, but that this is also a time where it gets harder, because you only have, at least in Berlin, you can only seat 50% of the people, more or less.
We don't know what's going to happen yet here. So, I mean, I think that it's going to be 2 meters per table, and then like no more than 10 people at one table, and restaurants have to close at 11. And all these things. We don't know. We will see Monday, I guess, and then we'll figure it out.
For sure.
But to me, the real struggle, even though as painful and stressful and everything this very moment is, and this next couple of days and this next week is very stressful, because the wind is blowing one way, and then there's it comes from another way, and then there's a wave, and you have no idea what's going to happen. The real fight is in autumn and winter. And that's when restaurants will really need everybody's help, because at that point, I think that I'm afraid that the negotiations between the banks and the government will be over, and the banks will be much less interested in borrowing money to any businesses. So I do think that, unfortunately, in this autumn and winter, we will see more restaurants and small businesses default. So I'm just saying that, I do think it's important to remember that the real fight is not now, but it will be in the next, couple of months.
Yeah.
And it's obviously right now it's about finding that formula of how do you make sure that you make it to next spring.
Yeah.
And then hopefully there will be a vaccine. But what do you do if it lasts until next summer, or or maybe whatever, right?
Yeah.
So, but it is very painful to watch all your friends and colleagues around the world suffer as they do. I mean, I feel, especially from my friends in the United States, and
yes,
and obviously also in all the developing countries, it's very difficult. So, but I do think what makes me happy and keeps my spirit high is the fact that the people in our profession are so, throughout all these things that happens in our profession, you can talk about all the bad things that happens there, but at the end of the day, the people in our profession, they are so kind-hearted, and they really want to help, and they want to make sure that other people are fed, and they do it out of love. So, we're so strong and we're so resilient. So if nobody wants to come and help us, then we're just going to do it for ourselves. And I do think that a lot of initiatives around the world, a foundation, fundraising dinners, and raising awareness for politicians, all these things, they will just happen because we are a profession which is too big to just say, okay, we're not going to care about this sector, and we will fight our way out of this. I mean, that's my opinion. And I will do everything that I can to make sure to help anybody that will be there. Yeah. And we will use all our strength and all of our knowledge and our powers to make sure that we can help as many people get through this. Yeah. Which is also why I think it's important that we put our egos aside and we figure it out and find the ways that we can help each other across the world.
Yeah, I can only sign that for sure. Honestly, that's like the biggest thing. I think just that we are such a big community is the biggest thing that I felt in the last weeks, and that we are connected through our passion and food and like feeding people around the world. So I think it's also a big chance to show again the importance economically but also culturally that the restaurant industry and the food industry in general has. So I think it can also be a really big change and chance to push the things that we anyways pushed forward in the last 10 years. I think it's a time where we can actually say, okay, let's actually put those into place now. Last question. I think it was a really, really interesting talk, but I just want to not keep you too long. What you were at home, you were cooking a lot at home. And you did have a little bit of a time of time in between. What did you reflect on in the last weeks?
Life.
Did you?
I think just in general.
Okay.
I think just life in general. My way of leading life, and I'm always trying to reflect upon how I can understand myself better. Why do I get angry at this moment? Why do I get sad? And why am I so tired right now? Or whatever it is. I'm always trying to find ways to understand myself better. And I think that has helped me a lot. Just trying to tune in and be present and figure out why are you angry at this moment? What are you really angry about? Or why are you holding on to the anger? That person only said this once, but you keep telling yourself it over and over and over again. Effectively you're doing the damage, it's not the other person. And I do think that making sure that you are aware of these things is, to me at least, it's helped me a lot. And then, as I said, I'm reading and studying and listening to podcasts and,
How is that life for you actually at home? When I was talking to some chefs, they were like, actually, it's great to have the night off. Maybe we just do lunch now.
Well, me personally, I can't wait to get back to the restaurant. I don't know, the few times where I've been in the restaurant to, pick up a few things or, shoot a video or do something there, I felt this like overwhelming sense of joy just wash over me because, it's such an incredible space. But I also feel that every time if I go somewhere else and I see other people's restaurants, I love it so much.
Yeah.
It's not just cooking for me. It is, it's a lifestyle. And, and so I love everything about it. The other day we were shooting a video because we were doing this charity event in Thailand, in Bangkok, last night. That was actually like a live stream where people could order like a 7 or 8 course menu, and then it would be delivered to the house. And then we were live streaming from London and from Copenhagen to Bangkok. To all these people in their houses, and then they were eating some of our dishes. Amazing. Obviously replicated, but we were in the restaurant filming it, and then we ate the dish afterwards, and just standing in that space eating a dish. I mean, I know it was our own dish, but it was like it was such an overwhelming joy, and it made me so happy. And my two friends that was with me, they were also extremely happy about it, because I don't know, there's something about going to a restaurant, at least for me.
I know, I honestly, I almost had the same experience. I mean, I'm not a chef, but I went into the restaurant and I just like picked something up and there was no one. And I was just standing there, and I think it's a time also for appreciation about like these amazing spaces that we created. And like, I was just really, I could actually feel the way it felt before, when the restaurant was full, when there was people in the kitchen, and I was just standing in this empty space, and I was just like, as you said, like just full of joy. And I was like, people will not give up on that because it's just too important.
Yeah, that's what I believe. So, but I think the conclusion is that the people in our profession are so strong and so resilient, and I have a lot of faith in the future, in my own future and my own capacity, but I also have an immense amount of faith in the future generations. With the amount of information out there and what they have been through, over the past couple of years, there should emerge super soldiers, so to speak, that will make our profession even better in every way, in every aspect. And I personally, I know that because I see it in my restaurant, whether it's in front of house or back of house. I really do. Amazing people, and they're so much further ahead than that I was when I was that age, and that makes me very happy and have a lot of faith in the future. Yeah.
Well, I think we have to have a lot of more exchanges in the coming months. But thank you so much for taking the time. Hopefully the
borders will open soon, so you can come here, or we can go visit you there.
Yes, for sure. I hope to see you soon. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you. And thank you guys, everybody, for watching.
Yeah,
it was incredible. Thank you so much. It's very kind of you.
I see you and talk to you soon. Have a great day.
Bye. Bye. Bye.